Person and Person is brought to you by the Perineum Group, the only truly centrist news organization.
That's right, Greg. We're in the sweet spot between partisan extremes. When tain't the left and tain't the right.
It's Perineum.
Tonight on Person and Person.
Orgy of Death.
The other disappearing monolith.
Yuri and the Real Girl.
Please stop visiting our fucking town.
Take My Breath Away.
My air purifier will run 8K at 60 FPS NBD. All of these stories plus sports, weather, food crime, and stayed up. That's tonight
on Person and Person.
Good evening, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome to Person and Person. I'm Gene Person.
And I'm Greg Person.
No relation. Speaking of wherever you are, we're starting to get a better sense of just where that is. We have had downloads in the last week from all over this great United States, Texas, Ohio, Indiana. We have had downloads from the UK and Japan. It is amazing.
Yeah, we just want to say how much we appreciate all you folks out there, listening, tuning in. Also, solidarity with comrades in India and all around the world. Hope that this reaches you well.
Absolutely. And it does demonstrate one thing for us, that is that people are telling their friends about the show, or at least people are finding us somehow, because the numbers are going up. And I just want to say we appreciate all of you so much.
Absolutely. It's a thrill to us that this thing that we do just for fun, just for ourselves, and just for each other has begun to find an audience. So thank you very much.
And now let's start to alienate them with tonight's main news.
Okay, and all the stories from me, Greg, tonight came to us from Palace Beast, so I wanted to do a shout out to my homies at Palace Beast. It is the ugliest trash fire on the internet, and I'm forever grateful for all the weird and wonderful news I find there. Our first story, the owner of an events company says his 4-day swingers convention in New Orleans held last month has been tied to 41 new coronavirus infections.
Now, when you're talking about a swingers convention, are these the swingers of professional Estonian swinging?
No, these are the key and the bowl guys.
Oh, okay.
These are the other guys.
Understood, okay.
And it must have been a pretty damn big bowl, because they jumped from 5 positive cases to 41 confirmed cases in just a couple days.
Well, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, as they say. The owner of the events company, Naughty Events, Bob Hannaford, he explained it all in a blog post on Friday and said that they are going to be reaching out to all the attendees to tell them to get tested and do some contact tracing. But it's too little too late in my book.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about orgies, Greg. A few hours of risky fun can lead to memories that will last the rest of your life, which will only be until next month. Doesn't matter, had sex.
Now, I will say, though, if you're the kind of person who've decided that it's just inevitable that you're going to get COVID, you'd rather be here than at the Olive Garden, right? You'd rather be doing naughty New Orleans with the swinger party than having unlimited breadsticks.
I think that's a fair point. And frankly, Greg, nobody needs that much salad.
No, but, the thing is, you can't have a socially distant orgy. The words don't even go together. There is no tool that you can use in this context that's long enough to maintain social distancing.
Right. I couldn't agree more.
I mean, I've seen some stuff on the internet, but nothing that's going to get me from 6 feet away.
Right.
This actually seems like it might be a perfect opportunity for the once burgeoning field of teledildonics. Do you remember reading about that back in the early days of the internet?
I do, Greg, and what an idea. This could be the time, the golden age of teledildonics.
For those listeners who were not too online in like 1996, teledildonics was this idea that you would have sex toys that could be remotely controlled by people over the internet with like maybe a haptic interface or maybe just a joystick.
If you know what I mean.
And it was a way to get people off at a distance. And this is an idea whose time, if you'll excuse the pun, has come.
Yeah, for sure. Seize those penis pumps and sex robots and go to town. Figuratively. Don't literally go to town with your sex robot.
No, sex robots are still illegal in all 50 states. Although, if there is one class of robots that I'd be okay with enslaving humanity, the sex robots are probably going to be the easiest time, right?
Yeah, I think I would enjoy, serving our sex robot overlords. I think that would be a great sexy time.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, buddy. What's our next story?
Well, with the news of monoliths appearing and disappearing, I thought this would be a good story to cover. Police in Kempten, Germany, are investigating the disappearance of another monolith, a 7-foot wooden sculpture of a penis. It appeared mysteriously on the Grunten Mountain 7 years ago, but it is no more. The giant dick has disappeared, and only sawdust has been left behind. It was rumored to have been a birthday prank that the recipient hated. Okay, so this giant dick weighed 440 pounds. And I think I know how the sawdust ended up there. One Puritan with a chainsaw cuts a culturally significant work of art into so much kindling. Tragic.
And yet Margaret Thatcher's statue is still standing. Where's the justice?
I tell you. So police became involved after the artifact, which was popular with hikers as a destination, disappeared. The theft of this monument being a clear violation of the penal code.
I hear you.
So do people just have it in for monuments at this point?
Well, I don't know if the same spirit that's motivating people to take down statues of Columbus and Confederate generals is the one that's causing people to chop down 400.
Yeah, I was
dicks.
thinking specifically more of the mysterious metal monoliths that appeared in the desert of Utah and Romania. But yes, we should draw that distinction. So let's talk about local legend of how this came to be. A young man receives a literal Woody as a birthday gift, but doesn't want it. So Dildo Baggins goes on an epic quest, lugging a 440-pound monstrosity to the top of a mountain. That's what we got. That's our best idea of what happened.
That's not a good story. That's not satisfying.
It's not.
It doesn't make any damn sense.
I'm going to need a couple of stiff ones to swallow that, Greg.
Go to pun jail. Report to pun jail for processing immediately.
There is no such thing as pun jail, and I will not be backing down from this point.
All right. But if I call the pun police and they show up at your door, don't say I didn't warn you.
You know what? I dare you. Call the pun police.
Okay, I'm dialing. Boop, 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 boop.
Don't call the pun police. Don't. I was just kidding. Let's move on to the next story.
All right. Well, this is a very horny episode because I have another sex-related story, although maybe the people involved in the story, or the person involved in the story, I should say, as will become clear, it really seems to be more about a genuine romance than just sex. There's a bodybuilder in Kazakhstan, Yuri Tolochko. He married his sex doll, Margot, 8 months after they started dating. He proposed, and she said yes, presumably in a higher-pitched version of his own voice. Now, what's interesting to me about this is that he's documented this whole thing on Instagram, right? Like everybody does these days. But he has a whole backstory for her and their relationship. He says that he met her in a nightclub. Some people were trying to give her a hard time, and he, kind of came over there and protected her, and they got to talking. But the thing is, she is a doll. She is a silicone doll. Like, that's extremely clear. What's not clear is how much of this story he's come to believe. And that's the part that troubles me.
Yeah. But so he met her in a nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
Was she secondhand? Or is that just the fiction he's sort of presenting around this?
Man, I hadn't even considered the possibility that he might have bought this thing used, and I will not be sleeping tonight, I can guarantee it. That's...
I mean, that's fair. I love this story because it's kind of simultaneously sweet and also very, very creepy. It's perfect for our audience.
Oh yeah, the geeks and the perverts are going to eat this up. But I could spend all day talking about this because the philosophical implications of it are so interesting to me. Because
Sure.
on the one hand, this guy has retreated so deep into a fantasy world that he's never going to be seen again on this side of reality. But by the same token, is this necessarily worse than, dating as it is typically done between two or more humans?
I don't know that it is. I don't know that it's any worse at all. I remember dating before I met Mrs. G person, and I was not having a happy time of it.
Dating is, the analogy that I come up with in trying to understand this story, is that it's like throwing yourself off a cliff and trying to fly because you saw someone do it in a movie.
That's a fair analogy.
I can't tell this guy to do it the old-fashioned way because I'm the William Hung of dating, basically. I don't realize that I'm only there as a joke until very late in the process. And also I'm hung.
What we do want to say is, Yuri, please do not throw her in the ocean when you're done with her. That's what eBay is for.
Yeah, absolutely. And some NGO volunteer is going to get freaked out because he thinks he's seeing a dead body, and nobody wants that.
Right. Our next story, Austrian village changes name from fucking. The Austrian village of fucking has grown tired of being a laughingstock. Residents say the English speakers of the world wouldn't leave fucking alone. Even Pornhub getting in on the action, offering residents free premium access, so the council declared a name change was in order. As of January 1st, the town's name will be changed. And the name that will be changed, it's going from fucking to fugging. Fugging.
Mm-hmm.
So they've made the vote to rename. It's done. But that's the new choice? At that point...
They could have picked literally anything.
Right, the sky is the limit as to what you can name it. Purple Banana Split Austria. Chastity Austria. But they go with fugging, and I don't think this is going to have the effect that they think it will.
Well, Norman Mailer used fug as a substitute for fuck in his novel The Naked and the Dead. And he got to meet Dorothy Parker, and the first thing she said to him was, "Oh, you're the man who doesn't know how to say fuck."
Right. It's already a substitution for fucking in the English language. I mean, they might as well have gone with frigging. Other towns that Pornhub had included in its offer were Tits, Germany, La Vagina, Toscana, Balls Cross, Petworth, and there's a few more. It's a silly promotion, but I guess the city of fucking isn't fucking around anymore. Another problem fucking shared with cities like Weed, California and Boring, Oregon was sign theft. So this I get. That's kind of a nuisance. I just feel like this solution is not going to work as intended.
Well, it seemed like they used to get tourism from the English-speaking tourists who wanted to visit a town called fucking. And
sure,
they're not going to get that anymore because nobody wants to go to a town called fugging. It's just not a cool name for a town.
Right. I can't see myself and the missus renting a room in a B&B so that we can say we were fucking and fugging. But who fucking knows?
And who fucking cares?
What's our next story, Greg?
Well, there's a dipshit in Virginia, Raymond Deskins, age 61, and you might bristle at me describing him right off the bat as a dipshit, but wait until I finish the story. You're going to be right there on board with me. He was arrested and charged with misdemeanor assault for aggressively breathing on two women while wearing a MAGA shirt and a Donald Trump pool floaty.
Boy, the president is taking this loss pretty hard.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know where you buy a Donald Trump pool floaty. I would never have guessed such a thing existed, but apparently it exists.
Yeah.
And apparently this guy wanted to wear one so bad he was wearing it in the middle of the day at a golf course.
Huh.
He looks exactly like you would expect. The guy you're picturing in your mind, like an evil Jim O'Hare from Parks and Rec. Yeah, that's him. And it goes to show that it is true that we all really do have an evil twin, or maybe a good one, depending on how you feel about yourself as a person. I have an evil twin. His name is Ted, and he's apparently a real dirtbag.
Oddly, my evil twin is called Bill. Maybe our doppelgangers hook up with that girl from the painting.
Oh, man. I want to see what their lives are like now.
Yep. They're going to be opening a nice B&B in Vermont.
Now, call back to episode 1, folks, if you haven't heard it yet.
And incidentally, episode 1 is no longer available in the feed, but you can still find it at personandpersonshow.com.
Now, this story, though, does illustrate a lesson that I think is good for everyone to internalize, which is that just because people are old doesn't mean they're entitled to respect. Some people live their entire lives to a rather advanced age, being ignorant, bellicose shitheads, and you're not entitled to any special consideration if you're going to go around breathing on people and making a scene, which is, by the way, caught on video if you feel like Googling it.
Well, especially if they're wearing a MAGA hat and a pool floaty. I do have one thing I'd like to say about this, because it really rankles me that the boomer generation harps on subsequent generations about the fact that they don't spank their kids and stuff. If this guy was spanked, it sure didn't do a very good job of teaching him to respect other people.
That's a really good point. I personally, I subscribe to the leaded gasoline theory of boomer dysfunction.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that's the case, but the boomers are already blaming it on a lack of discipline and no school prayer, etc., etc.
Well, I just want to say, in closing, fuck you, Raymond Deskins. You're a real asshole.
I think you've said it. You've said all that needs to be said.
All right, well then my work here is done.
Our final story tonight, a man has to sell his PS5 after lying about it. A Taiwanese man has been forced to sell his PlayStation 5 console after his wife found out it was not, as he had told her, an air purifier. She forced him to sell it, and sell it cheap. First up, why even lie about this? It seems so stupid to me. Eventually you're going to be found out when you're playing a game on your air purifier, and chances are you're going to have something thrown at you right when you're in the middle of a boss fight. In Demon Souls, no less.
Well, I wasn't married for a super long time, but I can tell you that if there's something that you say to yourself in your head, well, I just have to hope she never finds out, you fucked up. Rethink your whole approach.
Right. Secondly, and this podcast didn't exist when the PS5 design debuted, but it totally looks like an air purifier. Much humor has been made of the design, along with that of the Xbox Series X, which is... it's described as looking like a refrigerator. But that's an interesting thing that I wanted to add to this story.
You know, I can't remember what it looks like because I haven't wanted to tempt myself with forbidden fruit. So anytime I see a picture of the PS5, I just look away.
You could get forbidden fruit from the refrigerator if you had an Xbox Series X. My final question, I guess it's not really a question, my final point regarding this story is one night in Bangkok and the game is over.
I am in awe that you managed to work that call back in. I'm going to personally see to it, though, that we have no more stories about Thailand for at least a month until we can get the chess song out of our systems.
All right, you do your best, and I will do my best to keep working it into our episodes. On to the emotional weather. Have you checked out personandpersonshow.com yet?
We have a website now,
where you can stream full episodes of the show,
including the first episode.
I don't know why anyone would want to. The audio was so bad.
But the dinosaurs are so good.
You can also check out blog posts Greg and I have made.
Like my list of the best stuff,
my list of the worst stuff,
Gene's touching essays about the holidays of youth,
and Greg's equally touching recipe for the perfect BLT.
You can also vote right now for what you, our listeners, want to be called.
Person people,
personae,
personal army,
or suggest your own.
Voting closes New Year's Day.
Anything else you want to mention?
I'd like to mention socks.
Oh, are you writing an article about socks?
No, Greg, but they feel damn good on my feet.
There is no Jerry on the website.
We have complete creative control.
And we promise Gene's weird fixation with socks won't be on there either.
I have complete creative control.
So if you like Person in Person,
or socks,
or censorship of sock-related content, visit today, personandpersonshow.com.
That's personandpersonshow.com.
The only news website by persons for persons.
Well, this is the first time this has ever happened. We've got an updating story even as we record the show. It appears the German penis statue, or a new German penis statue, has reappeared atop the German mountain.
So maybe they weren't stealing it, they were just taking it away for a quick polish. I know I've done that a time or two.
Well, fair enough, but I don't know how all that sawdust ended up everywhere. I'm thinking this is probably a new statue. Like, this is actual wood. It's not the figurative wood that, a certain gender tends to sport.
Is yours not made out of wood?
If it is made of wood, Greg, I've been making a huge mistake fucking all those termite mounds.
Go to jail. Terrible.
Which is
Awful.
Which is obviously a huge mistake. Anyway.
If anyone is still listening to this stupid, repugnant show, I apologize.
German police are still apparently investigating the theft of the original statue, but take some comfort, hikers. Your monument has returned.
Well, that is a relief. I know that when I lose my wood, I'll do just about anything to get it back. I'm talking weird stuff.
Like, for instance, you happen upon a certain mound.
Yes.
In the,
The Serengeti?
That's right.
Sure, I know how it is. You book a safari, you're bored, you've seen all the rhinoceroses already. You start to get ideas about some of the local flora and fauna. I get it.
Yeah, and then it's termite fucking time.
There is a Teddy Pendergrass jam out there somewhere that is suitable for this occasion, but I don't know if we can get the license for it.
Well, it's best then to move on to the weather.
Indeed.
A minor change to the emotional weather this week. We're going to outline 3 emotions and choose one person or story each that exemplifies those emotions. First emotion this week, jolly. I don't know about you, Greg, but in spite of the pandemic, I'm seeing scattered reports of jolly emotion across the United States and indeed the world. Whistling, cocoa, holiday light displays, and a whole storm of not-so-socially distanced revelry are spreading like wildfire. To those who celebrate safely, we commend you. To those who insist on rolling those dice, however, we still want to wish you happy holidays and hope you somehow manage, despite your best efforts, to avoid unwrapping some brand new COVID this holiday season.
Hear, hear. So appropriately enough, the first person that I picked to exemplify the jollity of the season was Alex Winter. Now, you might remember him better as the Bill of Bill and Ted fame, but what you don't know necessarily is that he's also an accomplished documentary filmmaker, and this year, not only did he, do the Bill and Ted trilogy, which, if you still haven't seen it, is fantastic, but he also wrote and directed the definitive biography of Frank Zappa. I was never a huge Zappa fan, but this movie has got a lot of content from his personal effects and his archives that had not previously been accessible. So it really is a fresh look at him as a musician, as an artist, and as a person. And Winter, I follow Alex on Twitter. He's at Winter. And he is just a beacon of positivity and intelligence, and a very cool guy. So I say to him, party on, Bill.
Party on indeed. Our next emotion, horny. I have chosen a 27-year-old man in Monroe, Louisiana, who was arrested Friday after being spotted wearing no pants masturbating in front of a car, specifically a Nissan Cube. The man, Caleb Dillard, the culprit, isn't some weird geometry fetishist. He reported to police after accusing them of being fake cops that he was actually performing the act as a kind of ritual mating dance, hoping to attract a new partner. He was only caught after a high-speed chase topping out over 80 miles per hour. Methamphetamine was likely involved.
Yeah, I should think so. I mean, if you're going to... I don't want to be indelicate about this, but if you're going to do that in front of a car, you wouldn't choose a cube, right?
I don't know. That's not really the part of the story that I'm judging here.
I'm just saying, like, if I was going to rank the hottest cars, the Cube is possible.
Yeah, the Cube is definitely not a 10 out of 10. I can't believe I just said that sentence.
For me, it would probably be one of the older model Jaguars. Something about those curves, man. I gotta tell you, I'm looking at something right now that looks like it should be on a mountaintop in Germany, if you know what I'm saying.
And I do.
For me, the one who most exemplifies horny weather in this moment is comedian, actress, and podcast host Nicole Byer.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, she is absolutely delightful. I love her on many, many levels, particularly her own podcast, which is called Why Won't You Date Me? Now,
super funny show.
It's great. And I don't have an answer to the show's central question, because I and every other sane person in the world absolutely would date Nicole Byer. Nicole, if you're listening, just wander around in the desert until you find me. That's the best directions I can give you. I'm really bad with directions. But she is delightful, and it's a lot of fun to hear her explore that question.
I don't think I'm insane just because I won't date Nicole Byer. I'm married.
Well, I'm saying without like a compelling legal reason not to date Nicole Byer. Like,
okay, that's all I wanted out of you.
Yeah,
thank you.
You should date Nicole Byer. I mean, not you, obviously. You've got an excuse.
Right.
We know that. But there's no reason that, say, Tiger Woods can't date Nicole Byer. Is he not dating anybody still?
I don't really follow chess boxing.
All right, well then we'll just cruise right along.
Our final emotion of the week, paranoid. And I have chosen the Rudolph whose nose glows a bright, piercing brown. Rudy Giuliani has been vehemently and vociferously arguing about supposed election fraud to anyone who will listen. And at this point, that's mostly just folks in the same bubble that he's already in. He's so full of shit, it started leaking out his temple at one point. I don't know where we go from here, Greg, but I do know this. That wasn't Tutti Frutti on Rudy.
Well, wop babaloo wop, a wop bam boom. So I also have a political entry for the paranoid weather. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Now, you might have seen that she became the main character of Twitter the other day when she said that China has a 5,000-year history of stealing and cheating.
Wow.
Now, she's fully mask off, hood on right now. And the funny thing, or, not funny so much as infuriating, is although she got dragged on Twitter for it, the actual mainstream American news media didn't really say anything about it. Although, when she got clapped back from a Chinese journalist, Chen Weihua, now this guy, he leveled the most devastating and hilarious insult I have ever heard at her. He called her, quote, a lifetime bitch. It's so good. It's like honey on your tongue. It feels so good to say it. So that's in my arsenal now forever.
Yeah.
But when he said that on Twitter, they all clutched their pearls. Everyone from Bloomberg to the New York Times was just fainting that someone could say this. But because they're all part of this project too, this Sinophobia project. And it's unclear how many of these people actually believe any of the things they're saying, or whether they're just hoping you do. But, to you and to all of our listeners, don't fall for it. Which actually is a great segue into our latest segment, Panic Attack.
All right, tell us about the latest moral outrage.
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear from the lead-in. I want to talk about the anti-Chinese sentiment that our government and media are trying to stir up in the United States right now. They're trying to gin up a new Cold War with China, mostly, I think, and this was actually echoed by some folks on the internet, mostly to distract from their own failures, especially with COVID.
Which are plentiful.
Now, I do want to make clear, and I think you'll agree with me on this, Gene, person and person does not stand any government.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say.
Yes, they are all vile institutions that should be razed to the ground, but I will be damned if I, personally, will be listening to our government that sat on its hands while hundreds of thousands of people died tell me how bad the other guys are. There's that meme of like, oh, we have PlayStation at home. Well, we have plenty of evil and incompetence at home in the United States.
Yes, that is maybe my favorite use of the meme so far.
So yeah, we have evil at home, and I'm not interested in hating the Chinese. I'm not interested in the evils that their government does, because I know the evils that my government does.
Well, and like just getting it down to the basics. Let's fix what's wrong here before we start trying to engineer solutions for everyone else in terms of social engineering. It's just, I mean, I'm not an isolationist at all, but we have serious fundamental problems that need to be addressed with the way we tackled a number of recent crises.
But that's just it. If you're dedicated to not addressing those crises, what are you going to do except make a fake one that you can throw an army at?
Yeah.
So they're going to wag the dog because they've been fucking the dog on COVID.
And we all know that fucking dogs is much worse than fucking termite mounds.
Yes, if you insist that I say it out loud, morally, it's probably less reprehensible to fuck a termite mound.
That's all I needed from you, Greg. Thank you so much.
Anytime, buddy.
As you know, every week our investigative team presents a detailed and harrowing story on food crime. This week, as every week, Greg Person has the story. Greg?
Folks, I want to tell you about the Billy Roll. Now, you've probably already heard of the Billy Roll or seen memes of it or pictures on your social media because it's more popularly known as the meat clown. It's a roll of force meat like bologna that looks like a clown as you slice down the length of it. It was created by the Feldhuse Group of Ireland in 1986, soon joined by additional face meats. There's a bear-shaped one, and then there's a clown with a slightly different face.
So it's a clown face. Are clowns supposed to be tasty or something?
I don't know why they decided to go with a clown face if they... Apparently the technology to make face meat is proprietary, and they won't tell you how they do it, but apparently clowns were the first thing that they thought of. Now apparently Billy and his brothers are beloved by Irish children. They especially enjoy eating the eyes and the mouth and wearing the face over their own like little Hannibal Lecters.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, I haven't seen a picture of that, but I can picture it, and that's another thing to keep me up at night.
Yeah, no doubt.
In addition to the straight-up horror of the Billy Roll itself, I cannot say strongly enough that there is a real danger in teaching generations of children to eat faces.
At least not until you've got some bath salts in your system, you know?
Well, I assume that the bath salts come with the Billy Roll, because if you're going to be eating a face anyway, you might as well be doing it on bath salts.
Right, so it's like a package deal. I got it.
But see, this is the country that once banned WrestleMania for being too violent, and they're weaning their children on clown flesh. So I can only pray that they don't reap what they sow on this Billy Roll.
Watch out, Ronald McDonald. You're next. Sports. So we have received a couple of nominees for our new Christmas movie bracket. Please keep those coming in. We're not going to announce which movies made the brackets until next week on episode 9.
Still time to get your movies in, folks. Gremlins 1 and Gremlins 2 are up for grabs.
Gremlins 2 is not a Christmas movie. It doesn't take place during the holidays.
I'm pretty sure it does. Are you sure?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. It's a Wonderful Life in color with a better ending.
God, that movie's perfect. It's one of the best films ever made, folks. If it doesn't make the bracket, I'll put it on myself. This is our podcast, and we can do what we want, and it deserves to be on there.
So, for our highlighted sport this week, I have decided to cover extreme ironing. It's another sport originating in England. However, unlike shin kicking, extreme ironing, my new favorite sport, is only 40 years old. Tony Hyam, inspired by his brother-in-law who would iron his shirts while tent camping, created the sport, calling attention to the futility of the practice. He started out small, ironing in mountain lookouts, crowded airports, and atop phone booths. The sport has grown, however, with both solo and group feats, including on a mountainside during a difficult climb, while skiing or snowboarding, in the middle of the M1 motorway, ironing while underwater, and ironing while parachuting. Also, under the ice sheet of a frozen lake. But here's the question, Greg. Is it really a sport?
Well, I would think that dodging cars on the M1 would require some dexterity.
I say the activity around it requires athletics. Maybe it is a sport. but the question of whether it's a sport is the one wrinkle that media coverage can't seem to smooth out. At the very least, I think it's a sport enhancer.
Well, it's kind of hard to qualify, isn't it? It's like rain on your wedding day, or a free ride when you've already paid. It's a black fly in your Chardonnay.
Well said, Greg. On to our new segment, State Up.
Folks, there's a lot of states out there, which is to say, within whatever nation you live in, there's lots of little mini nations that make it up. And so we decided we wanted to highlight all of those. We're going to start alphabetically in the United States because that seemed like the logical starting point for us.
All right.
So our first state is Alabama.
Alabama.
So I want to tell you about Huntsville, Alabama, and Operation Paperclip. Now, we don't have time to go into all the details involving Operation Paperclip. It was a U.S. military program to smuggle Nazis into the United States to win the space race. But many of them ended up in Huntsville, Alabama, including the star, Nazi Party member and SS officer Werner von Braun, whose rocket factories in Germany used slave labor from concentration camps and actually killed more people than the V-2 rocket did in use. Nowadays, Huntsville is home to the Von Braun Center, which is a performance and convention venue. With all the recent interest in monuments to dead monsters, I'm surprised this one hasn't gotten more attention, but then again, the US government spent a shitload of money rehabilitating his reputation. He was director of NASA from 1960 to 1970, but is currently dead and in hell.
Where he belongs.
Indeed.
With Dupree Satan.
Oh, I forgot about Dupree Satan. Man, you were a compendium of knowledge about this show.
Well, you know.
Full disclosure, I've only listened to about 3 of them. I'm not sure if it's my cup of tea.
Our other story from Alabama takes place in the year 2017. A peanut butter jailbreak. The place, Walker County Jail in Jasper, Alabama. The caper, a dozen inmates put together a plan to escape. The secret weapon, peanut butter. 12 inmates scraped peanut butter off their sandwiches, used the butter to alter the door number over an exit, tricking a new guard into opening it for them before running off into the night and scaling a barbed wire fence. All 12 men were eventually caught again, but they can take some comfort in the knowledge that they are much, much smarter and more inventive than the men who caught them and the men who guard them. The guards beat their chests after the fact like gorillas that the men won't be getting any more peanut butter. Maybe switch it up. Give them chunky. Maybe hummus. I've been victim to that illusion before.
Oh, you've accidentally eaten hummus thinking it was peanut butter?
The most disgusting, I guess it was a chickpea and jelly sandwich I have ever had.
Oh, damn. Yeah, that's rough. See, because I love hummus, but don't surprise me with it.
Right.
Not when I'm expecting peanut butter.
Let's fire off some quick facts about Alabama to help educate our listeners.
Absolutely, hit me.
Fact. Alabama has 67 counties, which is too shy of being the right number.
Fact. Alabama is the only state where it's legal to buy a ghost.
Fact. 43% of the world's snails live in Alabama. And speaking of slime, 100% of Jeff Sessions.
Fact. The state tree is a rocket designed by war criminals.
Coming soon, the next bonus chapter of the Person and Person saga is the chapter where it all began.
The chapter from before we knew there were going to be chapters, so we didn't start there.
Person and Person, Origins.
The beginning.
Genesis.
In theaters, never, because it's a podcast, and also there are no theaters anymore.
Our final segment tonight, as every week, is Person to Person and Person, where we share your valuable feedback with our audience. This week, we have an email from G. Person, who writes, Dear Persons, how are you? I am fine. I noticed that you haven't mentioned Jerry for a while on your show. Is he still working with you? Is he still awful? I loved the interview with Gil. She has a very attractive voice. Do you mind if I send my fan mail to her? Sincerely, G. Person. Well, G, I wouldn't say Jerry is working with us exactly, but yes, he is still the official punching bag of Person and Person.
Jerry's in the box right now. He knows what he did, but he doesn't know when or if he'll get out.
And to answer your second question, I promise any of your horny mail sent to personandpersonshow@gmail.com will be read aloud to Gil. I can't promise it won't also be read aloud on the air. Folks, that's all the show we have for you tonight. We invite you to participate in Person to Person and Person, and there's so many ways for you to get yourself heard. Send us an email, personandpersonshow@gmail.com. Drop us a voicemail, 541-249-5933. Find us on Twitter, @AnchorPersons, and on Facebook, @PersonandPersonShow. Be sure to check out our website, personandpersonshow.com. Find us on your favorite podcatchers. Please subscribe, review, and rate the podcast. It is working. The word is getting out. Or simply tell a friend. Until next time, this is Gene Person saying you should always send a comedy set with a callback.
And this is Greg Person saying, don't surprise me with hummus. Good night.
Because of the end of civilization, the Clamp Cable Network now leaves the air. We hope you've enjoyed our programming, but more importantly, we hope you enjoyed life.